Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Facebook Live from Alzheimer's Orange County. My name is Melissa Clabe. I'm the Director of Education here at Alz OC, and I'm joined by Kim Bailey, a Programs and Education Specialist here at Alzheimer's Orange County. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, Melissa. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. This morning, we're going to be talking about assisting loved ones with bathing. It could also be if you're a professional and you're assisting your residents with bathing as well. We open to all. And as always, we'd love to hear your comments, questions, concerns, anything. Please feel free to type in. We love for these to be interactive as we go. And hopefully you leave here with some practical strategies and tips that you can start with today. That's our goal for you. Before we dive in, I do want to thank our generous sponsor, Right at Home. They've been sponsoring our education this month. They are a leader in the in-home senior care industry. They provide quality in-home care for seniors and other adults with disabilities who just need some assistance to maintain their independence. Of course, they have custom care plans, caregiver matching, and we are so thankful that they are such a generous sponsor of ours. We wouldn't be able to do as much of this education that we do without their support. So if you're interested in learning more, please visit rightathome.net. Go right at home, says Lizette. Okay, excellent. And good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Lizette. And good morning to everyone else out there. So let's dive in. This is a topic I know I've struggled with as a personal caregiver myself. And talk to many families and others that this just seems to be an area that becomes really difficult at some point. And I know Kim, you have experience with this as well. So let's dive in here. I always like to start with kind of a quote to get our perspective in line with what we're talking about. And I love this quote. I share it a lot. But this is a quote from Dr. Al Power, a geriatrician, a dementia care expert. And he says, what's commonly seen as confused or challenging behavior is in actuality compensatory or adaptive behavior by an individual who continues to express agency and purpose in their own unique way. And it can be really hard, I know, in the midst of a challenging situation to take a step back and look at behavior this way and say, well, this is just the person expressing their agency or expressing their need for choice. But if we don't look at it that way, if we just kind of look at it as, oh, this person's being difficult, they are resisting, why are they resisting my help? I'm just trying to be a good person. I'm just trying to help them. It makes it a lot more stressful. And I think it just doesn't quite get to the heart of what's happening, especially if it's happening over and over and over again, if this is a daily or weekly occurrence. If we can dig into some reasons why this may be happening for this particular person, what may be triggering it, some needs that we may be able to fulfill for them to reduce these kind of challenging incidences, especially surrounding things like personal care and bathing, I think it'll really help us in the long run. And I've experienced that myself personally. I know a lot of others have as well. Kim, do you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, I think too that we need to remember that persons with dementia experience the world in a completely different way, and we're constantly forgetting that because they look quote unquote normal. And so remember that in particular, sensory information coming into the brain is processed differently. So by that, I mean specifically their senses, the way they see, taste, smell, and experience things, perceive things is different. And so that includes the tactile senses. And so I've often reflected on bathing, and I've come to the conclusion that it just doesn't feel the same for them. For us, the thought of taking a bath, oh, the water feels so good, or, oh, a hot shower seems, so soothing. And I've come to the conclusion that it just doesn't feel that way for them. And they don't see it the way we do. And they just don't experience that. And it's often very threatening for them. And so taking a step back and remembering that is, I think, critical. So when they're resistant, it's, we can't regard that as a behavior. We have to remember that they're frightened or fearful, or there's other compelling reasons behind that quote unquote resistance. So we have to be reassuring, and we'll talk about, why our approach is going to be very key in all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad you mentioned that about viewing it as distress versus a behavior. When we view someone as they're in distress, how can I help them? It definitely changes our approach versus, oh, they're just being resistant, and now
Right.
I don't have as much empathy for them, and I just kind of want to get through this task, and doesn't mean we don't love and care for the person, but it is frustrating, and I
Right.
understand that very well, and I know all our care partners out there do too. So where do we get into hot water with personal care? Lots of places. And I like that. Yeah, hot water, because we're talking about bathing. It's intimate, extremely. This is a thing that we're used to doing on our own, probably. And so, oh, now we have another person here, and they're trying to take my clothes off. And how does that feel to me if I don't really know what's going on? Again, as I mentioned, that lack of independence, or having choices or control over your day. And maybe that person's kind of felt that all day, and then this is the last straw, and now we're going to go into the bathroom and take all our clothes off. And so, it's just kind of the day has been heating up with the lack of choices and control. And then changes in motivation or understanding why I need to bathe. I already took a bath, and maybe they aren't necessarily trying to lie to you, but as Tifa Snow says, often it's an old memory in a new place. They're remembering, of course I bathe every day, or I bathe every other day. And why would that be any different today?
Right.
Because they do have those very real changes going on in their brain, that short-term memory loss. And so we need to understand that, there are lots of factors at play here.
Yeah. So this tells me that, our immediate reaction can't be to try and reason with them when they tell us, oh, I don't need a shower today, I just took one. Our knee-jerk reaction might be to argue with them and say, actually, you haven't taken a shower for 3 days, because you're sure to get a negative pushback from that. Right. And that whole intimacy and the privacy and dignity issues, all of that. And just, just put yourself in their shoes. If somebody starts pushing me into a room and taking my clothes off, that's going to feel like an assault to me. So at the
Absolutely.
very, very least, we know that we have to go very slowly here and be very respectful at minimum. And to
Absolutely.
really, really see it through their eyes, because as I said earlier, the usually pleasant sensation of water running across my face, something that's felt good to me all of my life. In this quote, this person is saying it became a distressing one when I was bathed by another person and I could not control the process, says Joanne, a person living with dementia, in the book Dementia Beyond Drugs.
So actually, this Joanne Rader she developed bathing without a battle. If you remember,
Mm-hmm.
she was a nurse, and
Oh,
she
that's
wanted
right. Yeah.
to. I know we quote people with dementia all the time. It's great. I love it.
Okay, let me back up a little there.
um, but she wanted to know what that experience was like. She was like, okay, I'm going to develop this program, but I don't feel like I can do it justice unless I really get in their shoes and see
That's
what it
right.
feels like. And she was even surprised, as a dementia care expert, as someone that works with people with dementia every day, she was even surprised. And this was not a bath that was out of her control. She could have got up at any time. She knew exactly what was happening. So take those factors away from someone with dementia who may not know what's happening, may not feel in control, and she still felt like this was distressing. And that this thing she loved, this water running over her face when it was not in her control, it was torturous. There's another story from a physician of a care home. Her name's escaping me, but she also wanted to know what it felt like. And she actually lived for like several weeks as a resident in her community. And she also had people bathe her. She did bed baths, which was a lot less, kind of invasive and a lot more privacy. But she said, on 3 different days, she had 3 different staff members giving her a bath. And she said by the time the third different person came in to give me a bath, I felt like I had no dignity left. And I know a lot of times those are things that are out of the person's control in a situation like a care community where staffing may be an issue.
Right.
But it's something for us to think about nevertheless. With if we have people coming into our home, or in a care community, can we keep that consistency? At least is that something we can do? Can we keep it down to just really the essential people, like one person? We'll talk about this a little bit later, but the more people you have in there,
Yeah.
it just becomes like this kind of circus and really distracting and can really, impact a person feeling like they have dignity and modesty. And those things are so important, I think, to keep top of mind when we're talking about bathing.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, other things that you had mentioned, Kim, like, feeling fearful, maybe the temperature of the water, not knowing how to manage. So think about these things that are, impacting their senses as dementia does. And then all the things happening in a bathroom, the sounds, just there's a lot going on. We kind of go through this routine every day of taking a shower and we don't think about it.
Right.
Right. But once you're kind of faced with that task of helping someone else, you are forced to kind of think about, okay, wow, there are a lot of steps here. There's a lot of prep I need to do before I even bring the person in. And then, how are they feeling about this whole situation? So, um, knowing a person's preferences should be, kind of the first thing you think about. We should make a plan. We shouldn't just kind of hop into this task and say, let's go for it and see what happens. That's usually not the best setup for success, right? So what did they used to like? Did they used to like to shower in the morning, at night? They may still like that, but they may not. Their routine may shift. They may feel, better at a certain time of day now than they used to before. Maybe they got up and
Right.
showered and went to work, but now they're not doing that anymore. Maybe they're sleeping a little later. Maybe they want a slow morning. And throwing a shower in the midst of that is just going to cause some chaos that, if we can avoid
Right.
that, we should try to avoid that. Um, Anything else you want to add here on
Yeah, and I'm just
preferences?
thinking about how it's so different when, between family caregivers versus residential care staff.
Yeah.
When you've got, multiple people you're caring for and there's sort of an agenda that needs to be met, you don't have as much flexibility. So that makes it more difficult. But definitely for home caregivers, you may find yourself, wanting to be very flexible with that timing, etc., as opposed to professional staff who have to, maintain a little bit more strict routine. But yeah, just going back to that last slide when you were talking about control. I mean, sometimes, and we'll talk about this, there are some fixes for that. For example, using a handheld shower can
Absolutely.
give that person a sense of having a little bit more of a feeling of control. But yeah, definitely, you have to find out what works best. And I like your idea about not making it a circus. And sometimes you find, for professionals, there may be a staff person that has a particular affinity for bathing, and kind of make that person be the one,
Yeah.
that, and have some consistency, as much consistency as possible.
Right.
But never push. If a person says no, no means no, and if you try to force them, it's going to have a bad outcome. And people do not have to have a shower every day. I mean, they really don't. As people age, particularly the elderly, unless they're, if there's a problem with bowel and bladder incontinence that, means they need to be cleaned every day. I mean, several times a week is plenty.
Yeah.
So,
And we'll talk about some alternatives to that,
right,
bathing every day. I think we have it in our head just, as a society, and that's kind of what we're used to. And we feel like we're like letting the person down or guilty that we're not fully taking care of them if we're not doing this. But, and I didn't know as a caregiver back in the day, that there were so many other options. I wish I knew about all the other things I could be trying versus trying to just get my mom in the shower and do this the way we've always done it. And it was
right,
so stressful for both of us. So I want to
right.
ask a little quiz to everyone here, and we'll talk about this in a few slides. But do you think a bed bath can get someone just as clean as a regular bath or shower. So share with us in the comments if you have an opinion on that. Yes or no? Do you think a bed bath can get someone just as clean? And we'll talk about that when we talk about alternatives to kind of traditional bathing and showering. Oops, I went backwards. So let's talk about setting ourselves up for success. So we talked about knowing the person's preferences. When are they at their best? We do want to try to bathe them or give them a shower when they're at their best. But getting set up is very important. So making the bathroom very warm. This is something I didn't even think about. Because, we think about, okay, the water's warm. I'm just gonna, undress. I'll be cold for a minute and then I'll get in the shower, right? But when you're trying to kind of gently and slowly coax a person to get into a bath or shower, if they're cold, they're not going to probably want to undress. I mean, that's kind of right. I mean, think about it now, it makes perfect sense. But when we're in the moment, we're like, why won't they just take off their clothes? Why won't, they have to do that to get in the shower. And we might not even think about the fact that, really they might be cold. And so this can be a really kind of low hanging fruit, something that we can do. Just try to make the bathroom as warm as possible and inviting and good smells. Have everything you need ready to go. You don't want to be leaving the bathroom, coming back, for safety issues, as well as just messing up kind of the routine of the shower, and not rushing it, which will stress as well. Anything else you want to add here, Kim?
Yeah, just remember they're usually always colder than we are because, we're running around, getting overheated, and because of their circulation and the fact that they're usually pretty sedentary. I mean, everyone's an individual, so this may not ring true for all of your residents or for your loved ones, but they're usually colder than we are. And so I know when I was a personal caregiver, I would usually kind of strip down to give my client a shower. So I'd have on shorts and a tank top or a sports bra, because I get wet, so I was pretty stripped down, and she would be, it would be like a steam bath in there. And this is not for our comfort. This is for their comfort. And I really was very careful to have everything I needed on hand. And I would get that set up really quickly. I didn't want her to see me setting everything up, in advance, because then she'd start to get agitated.
Yeah. What's going on?
Good caregiver has to be prepared.
Yeah.
So,
and you develop some tricks along the way, but
sure.
if they are unclothed and warm and we are clothed, we should probably be sweating, right? Or kind of, we should be like uncomfortably warm if they are going to be, warm and unclothed. But we could also talk about, we'll talk about it in a few slides. Like they don't necessarily have to be totally, exposed. We can, use things like covering them with a towel or other draping, or even some loose clothing. If that's going to make them feel more comfortable, like they have some modesty preserved. And that's something I didn't realize either earlier on. I was like, well, we have to do this to do, this next step. But there are so many different ways you can approach this, and to just, make it as comfortable for them as possible through this process, and not rushing it is just so important. And I think we just get into this mindset of, okay, we both just want to get this over with as quickly as possible. So we're just gonna power through and then it'll be over. And, the person doesn't understand that that's, what's happening. They're just like even more uncomfortable, more anxious because you're anxious. And then the next time you go to do that same activity, they're going to remember that negative experience of, feeling like this was chaotic. This was, I felt out of control. So if we can slow it down in the beginning a little bit, it's going to save us time.
Slow it down.
The more we try to rush it.
And talk them through it.
Yes, absolutely. And so, we haven't even really gotten to the bathing part yet, right? We're talking so much about setting up, planning, the approach. This should tell us all that this stuff, forming a connection before we do the task, this stuff is even more important maybe than when you get to the actual task. Because by the time you've gotten there, hopefully you've set yourself up for success. The person is not distressed. And so the actual activity may actually be like pleasant sometimes or enjoyable. I know it can be hard to imagine that if you're in this time period where it's really stressful every time, but I got to that point where it was, enjoyable at some time, not every time, but most times, we kind of got to a routine that we could both enjoy. So Again, a little bit of time up front, making sure these things are, carefully considered, can save you that time and make it more of it enjoyable and make it something that you don't necessarily need to try to rush through because it's so
Right.
unpleasant.
Because you've gotten through the fear factor.
Exactly. Do you
Right.
want to talk about the approach a little bit?
Sure. So, as the slide indicates, the way you invite them matters. And so here you want to watch your language. Maybe the word shower just is going to be a trigger for them. And so you may want to just say, let's get you cleaned up. And for me, it was always, wanting to offer sort of a carrot at the end of that. It's like, let's get you cleaned up so that we can go out to lunch. Um, Personally, for me, I never used the word shower. I used
Mhm.
to call it a spa day. We're going to have a spa day now. And it's afterwards, I'm going to give you a massage. And so, for the woman that who I cared for, she just absolutely loved when I gave her a body massage. And so that usually did the trick. Once she was deeper into the illness, she didn't understand that language, spa day. So I would call it a day of beauty. And I would really just, and of course, you can't do this in residential care. Professionals can't do this, but well, maybe they can. If they make it an activity, I would, it was not just the shower, it was the shower followed by the massage, followed by me doing her hair and her makeup and getting her dressed up and, going out for an activity. Or sometimes I'd take a video of her and send it to her kids. So it was sort of became, this lovely activity, but I never just said it's time for your shower
Yeah.
because that word shower provoked no.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, she would just stop dead in her tracks and say, "No, I don't need a shower," or "I don't want a shower." So,
Right.
and it's all about the body language and, just, your big smile on your face and, using that, sort of language and, offering something in exchange, sort of tricking them a little bit. So, and if they do say no, and you'd have to realize that no means no, and you can at least thank them,
Mhm.
for trying.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know about the timely warnings. I'm going to have you do that one, Melissa.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about this. So, this was a study done by a few nurses, care providers, and they looked at using what they called timely warnings. And so they basically warned the person before they did something that they were going to do that. So, kind of asking for permission step by step, instead of just doing something to the person and then saying sorry after, or oops, like I'm sorry if that was uncomfortable or something like that. So an example would be, okay, we're going to get cleaned up. I need to uncover you for a minute. Is that okay? I'm going to do my best to keep you warm. And so, that kind of continually, okay, now we're going to do this. This might be a little bit uncomfortable, especially for the things that may produce a little bit of discomfort momentarily, and reassuring the person that, I'm going to do everything I can to keep you warm or comfortable or safe. And that reduced
Excellent.
so much distress rather than just doing to the person. It's more of a doing with the person and making it kind of, a team approach. And they found that reduced a lot of incidences of distress, especially when they were bathing their residents.
That's perfect. That's what I was referring to when I said talking them through it step
Yeah,
by step. That's excellent. Excellent.
right. Okay, so preserving dignity, this is a big one, right? And we want to make sure we do this from the beginning to the end. And so draping is a big one. And again, something I didn't even think about as, when I was first trying to do this, I just thought, okay, let's just kind of get this done. But, even in later stages of dementia, things like wanting to have your dignity preserved, feeling shame or pride or empathy, these things are preserved. Even if a person may not be able to communicate that to you, they still are likely feeling that way. And so, especially if this was a person that was modest their whole life, and that was really important to them, that should be top of mind for you as you're doing something this intimate as bathing. So, draping can be, there's a lot of different options. Something that is really easy that you have already is a towel, right? And just, kind of draping that over them. You can wet them through it. You can wash them under it while they're covered. So, they don't have to be totally just like exposed, and it could help with warmth as well. Just comfort. There's a short video that Teepa Snow put out where she says, you can even wet them through their clothes. And then once someone has wet clothing, what are they probably going to want to do with it? They're probably going to want to take it off.
Exactly.
So, instead of kind of like, well, you need to take off your shirt, you need to take this off, looking at it from different approaches and trying different things, really thinking outside the box. But yeah, draping, they make special draping garments too, like these special bathing, Nina, I mean, they're like super stylish. I think a towel or loose clothing would work just fine. You probably have something around the house that could work well, maybe a light, like super light robe or something like that. So yeah, think about draping. We talked about limiting or keeping the staff or people the same when possible. And trying, just, it should be really just one person there. There shouldn't really, unless there's like a need mobility wise, you need like two people to assist this person or something. Think about why you need more than one person in there. And that could be because that could be contributing to the distress, and then the person gets distressed, and then you feel like you need to call more people, and then it just like is this crazy cycle. So really just keeping that one-on-one activity. And again, of course, our communication is key. Asking permission, timely warnings.
I just want to mention something
Please.
for the home caregivers, the family caregivers. We've seen sort of this phenomenon over the years of families telling us that their loved ones were very comfortable with professionals bathing them as opposed to them bathing them. And so just a suggestion, if you're encountering a lot of resistance with your loved one in bathing, you might want to use an in-home care agency because some of them have just a bathing service where they'll come in. I think for most of them have a 4-hour minimum, but they'll come in and do that for you. And it's kind of interesting because families are always shocked and they say, why won't they do that for me? But they'll do it for a stranger. But I really think that it must be a shame issue or an embarrassment issue, and that somehow they're just able to do that with someone they don't know more readily than someone they do know. And if you think about it, if you're an adult daughter and you're bathing your mother or your father, it may be wrapped up in that. I can't pretend to know what they're thinking, but I just know kind of collective wisdom over the years. I've had many families tell me that, and it happened to me. My grandmother developed dementia. She had a lot of trouble with me showering her. And when she ultimately went into, she had to go to a nursing home because she broke her hip, and they showered her all the time there, and she had no problem with it. And I was just like, wow.
Great.
That happened. So it happened to you too, Melissa?
I totally agree. Yeah. At a certain point, my mom, who I cared for, was much more comfortable with an in-home care provider coming in and helping her do that. And I'm sure she was probably a little bit more patient than I was too at that point, which may have had something to do with it.
Well,
but
I don't know about that.
And it took a lot of stress. Oh, thanks. It took a lot of stress off me and our family for sure. So that's definitely, if that's a possibility to try, I think that's a great suggestion for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bathing Without a Battle is the name of a resource that I really love. I just really love their title as well, because we don't want it to be a battle. We really don't want anything to be a battle if we can help it. But if you Google like Bathing Without a Battle, it's an incredible resource. And it's kind of old, the video, but there's a lot of videos. It's free. It was designed for nurses. Really, it kind of has that professional feel, but it has a lot of really great resources and a lot of stuff that I pulled for this talk as well that we're doing today. So, and they stress all of these things, dignity and warmth, like we talked about, doing the activity with them instead of, feeling like you're just doing something to the person, and giving good cues, of course, and being gentle. And I just want to make sure. Okay, I wanted to answer the question that I asked earlier, and we can talk about that now. But I see most people responded yes. I think everyone did actually to the question of, can a bed bath get someone just as clean as a shower? And absolutely, they found that to be true. And some of the reason maybe because it's much more comfortable for the person. The person wasn't really, kind of fighting back or resisting, and they were able to just enjoy it and be in their bed. I mean, what's kind of better than that? Being able to just relax through, it was a much more relaxing experience. So it may not be for everyone, but at some point, that may be an incredible option. And I'll talk about a little bit about it, but this resource, Bathing Without a Battle, goes into it in much more detail if that's something you're looking for more resources on. Tipa Snow also has a couple great videos that I referenced. This is like a screenshot from one of them. If you Google or on YouTube, look for Tipa Snow and bathing. She has some really great tips. She focuses a lot on kind of gentle demeanor, and she has kind of a trick where she puts a lot of some gentle pressure on the person's palm, and that kind of calms them down, or on their shoulder, and just that kind of connection, instead of thinking about how we might do it sometimes, just like, okay, get these, get the soap, get the thing, we wash them down, but really checking in with the person. How are you doing? Are you enjoying this? And really making them the center of it, not just a part of it, but it's kind of an activity that you're doing together. And obviously communication is a huge part of that. And these are things that we talk about in our kind of general communication class as well, but they're no less important here. Smiling, gentle touch, avoiding towering over them if you can. Maybe you have a shower chair or a tub bench that you're using, so just being aware, if you're kind of constantly standing over them, how that might make them feel, and paying attention to both your body language and their body language, because again, they may not be able to verbally express if they're feeling discomfort or pain or fear. So just really checking in with them. Kim, do you want to talk about just the importance of connection, which we talk about a lot, but I think it's just so important?
Sure. And this isn't just about bathing. It's about all personal tasks, all activities of daily living. The connection always overrides the task. Everything you do, even personal care, especially personal care, is an activity, and it gives you a chance to make just a powerful connection with them. And people, no matter what the stage, never lose that desire to connect with you. And so I love this image so much because, it's not just combing her hair, it's, producing that expression on her face. She obviously loves it. And so, and who wouldn't? She's getting a little scalp massage there at the same time. And so, and the other way to look at connection is more important than the task is that sometimes we set out to do a task and the person is resisting. And so we may have to just make that task for another day. And we may just want to connect with that person in another way. And so there were many times when I had an agenda for the day. And my client had a completely different agenda, right? And so, it may be that I had a shower scheduled and that didn't happen. And we ended up, as I've often said, sitting on the couch and looking at her wedding pictures, or just holding hands and listening to music. And you know what? Who cares? I mean, the smile on her face was much more important to me than the shower, because I could do something different than the shower. Like Melissa said, I could do a bed bath, or sometimes I would even just, clean her up when she was sitting on the toilet. And she had a raised toilet seat, and, I might just ask her, is it okay if we clean you up sitting here? So, I mean, we can do workarounds for these tasks, but the connections is what we're seeking, and those are what lead to the increased quality of life. And we want to see these expressions of contentment and expressions of joy. Those are what we're after, right?
Yeah.
That's when we know we're doing a good job.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be said about connection, and maybe more so in a care community where the staff is a little bit more pressed for time and feels like, okay, I
Yeah.
have to get these tasks done, and that's an unfortunate situation. But even
Yes.
just if you can take a minute to connect with somebody when you don't need something from them, going knocking on the door, obviously going in the room, or if they're out, in a common area, and just taking a moment to just connect. Because if somebody feels like you're only coming to them anytime you need something from them, or you want to take them and to go do something that may not be that, comfortable of a task, then, they may just have that initial kind of resistance ready when they see you approaching. So making sure that you're, able to just connect in little moments, and just share a laugh, or a hand squeeze, whatever it is, when you just completely don't need anything from them, I think can really make a difference. So yeah.
The other thing about for professional caregivers, and you all know this, is that sometimes you make a request and you're not being received well. You immediately step back and walk away, and sometimes you can come back in a few minutes, reframe your request,
Mhm.
and sometimes then they're open to it. Or sometimes it just takes a change of face. Maybe someone else, a colleague, can come and ask them to do a similar task, and they'll do it for them. So, but the important thing is not to push, because, if you don't insist, they can't resist. We always say
Absolutely.
that.
No,
So,
it's
yeah.
great. I mean, absolutely. I totally agree. So here's kind of our wrap up here, and one way that you could kind of get around doing a traditional bath or shower is what they call a bath in a bag, or a bed bath. But this is like next level, because you put everything in this one little bag and then you bring it to their room. And they go through this in Bathing Without a Battle, and basically it's, they tell you what you need: kind of a large towel, or a large, they call bath blankets, and some smaller washcloths for washing up. And then you use this no rinse solution, and it tells you on the solution how much you mix with warm water, and you kind of pour that in the bag, you work it in the towels, and then you kind of work the big towel or bath blanket under the person's covers when they're literally in bed. And then you can use that to kind of, like Kim said, like massage, kind of different areas, and use smaller washcloths to clean up their face and other areas. And it can be really pleasant for the person, and you can kind of go slow, and they're warm, and they never had to leave their bed. And you just wipe it clean. There's, it's called no rinse, because it just kind of sticks to the dirt, and then you just wipe it clean. So it's an incredible invention. So this can be one way that, if a person is really, not interested in the traditional bath or shower, and it's become a battle, this is something you can try. Other things they suggest in this video are even bathing the person while they're standing, and wearing like a gown or a robe. Kim, you mentioned on the toilet. We both are big fans of bidets. If you
Yes.
can get a bidet installed, that's a huge part of cleanup. And then, they're that area is clean, and then you don't have to worry so much about urinary tract infections, and so I think that can be that was a big time and lifesaver for us, having those bidets installed.
And
It's
you
not as
could order
common here in
that,
the US, but I think they're getting more common.
but you can
But
order those from Amazon, right? The bidets?
oh yeah, they
Yeah.
sell them at Costco, Amazon, whatever,
Okay.
and you can attach them. You can have someone attach them so that it's warm water to your warm water. So there's a lot of different things that we can do to kind of think outside the box, think outside the tub, and uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and it gets the person just as clean, maybe even cleaner, if you're not having to rush through. And so, yeah, if this is an area that's really tough for you, I highly recommend this. I'm going to bathingwithoutabattle.unc.edu. And it's hard. I mean, they show real videos of people being bathed in like what you shouldn't do type of a situation, and just the distress. And there's a lot of, kind of calling out, and it's hard to watch. But then when they change their approach, when they change the environment, and to just see the people like actually enjoying it, it's really something to watch, kind of the before and after. And it gave me a lot of hope, as a caregiver, that it doesn't have to be this battle. It doesn't have to be something I'm dreading. Oh my gosh, tomorrow I have to try to give her a shower again. And I just remember those days of being really stressed out about it. And there's just a lot we can try, and talk to other caregivers who have been there. Think they all have their tips and tricks too, and strategies, and we highly recommend, if you're a care partner, joining a support group talking about these things. We have a closed private caregiver support group that you can join, where you can talk about things like this. And again, of course, if you don't insist, they can't resist. There it is. So thank you all for being a part of our discussion today. This is a topic I enjoy talking about because, we have a lot to share. Cindy says, I wonder if bidets can be qualified as medical equipment. I don't know. Kim, do you know about that?
I don't know.
Guess you'd have to ask
Yeah.
insurance. That's an interesting question, though. Cindy, why don't you look up that and get back to us? Let us
Yeah,
know.
I mean, since incontinence is a medical condition, it might qualify as medical equipment, Cindy. So it'd be really interesting to find that out.
Yeah, maybe I'll look into that and see and comment back here. But yeah, I just want to kind of wrap up today. I want to thank one of our community partners, Caregiver Resource Center. They provide services and support for family caregivers. They have specialized information, caregiver assessment and planning, support groups, respite. They offer services in Spanish and Vietnamese and English. And our resources here for you. Of course, our helpline. If this is an area or any other area that you are finding challenges in or struggling and you want to talk it out, please call us. We have so many resources that we'd love to share with you. So call our helpline. If you end up leaving a message, you will get a call back, so don't fret. Thank you for being here with us on Facebook. And of course, we have lots more classes. We have classes both on Facebook and on Zoom. And so we'd love for you to join us. We have one class coming up next month on Zoom, and I want to put the link in the comments for you. It's a communication workshop on April 30th with Ben Allen, one of our great educators there. So we would love for you to join us if you are a family care partner. And thank you all. I see a lot of thank yous. It was very, very nice to see people in the chat today. And yeah, we just appreciate your time. We know that time is your most valuable resource. And so we really thank you for spending it with us. And thank you again to Right at Home. Kim, any final words to wrap up?
Yeah, it looks like we had all ladies today. I don't know, maybe the men were afraid to speak up. But I just want to say that bathing is just one of many challenging things that you do for your loved ones. And I want to thank you for the wonderful job that you do. And thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to spend some time with you. And we hope, of course, that the tips that we gave you today were helpful. And have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kim. See you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.